Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Sunbury Motors, North 4th Street in Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Sports talk where your voice counts. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
All right. Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15, Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Kia, Hyundai, best in new inventory. Great pre-owned inventory with the Sunbury Motors guarantee. And a fabulous service department that takes care of the life of the vehicle. Great technicians. All at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15, Hummel's Wharf, online at sunburymotors.com. All right, Bob Pompeani in a moment, but first our play-by-play call of the day.
He had Bowers as the lead blocker in that split backfield. Bennett's going to take it and stroll into the end zone. Touchdown!
Student body left, snap it to my athletic quarterback, get a couple of lead blockers out. TCU acts like they've never seen that play before in their life as nobody was there.
No white shirts in the area code. Bennett just zipped it right over to Muscle Beach and scored easily, trotting into the end zone, standing up, and the Dogs add 6 more. It's 23-7.
Scott Howard and Eric Zier, I believe, on the call for the Georgia Bulldog Radio Network. Back-to-back national titles for Georgia. They won 65-7. Yeah. With that, we bring in the outstanding Bob Pompeani from Pittsburgh. Bob, how you been? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, too, Steve. Appreciate it. And what a game last night, huh? 65-7, just as I thought.
Yeah, I think just about what everybody thought. Because, I mean, no, with all due respect to TCU, you just didn't see as a matchup that it was going to be a matchup.
No,
I didn't see it.
Georgia is like a machine now. They've taken over for Alabama, and I'm sure it was interesting last night watching on the set when David Pollock looked over straight in the eye to Nick Saban and said, hey, Georgia's taking over college football. They're the best program, blah, blah, blah. He had to sit there and listen to that. So he'll be motivated to try to answer that. I actually thought Alabama should have gotten into the Final Four. I was one of the few who thought that. But it is what it is, and they're the better team. And now they're going to lose, 10 to 15 more people in the NFL, and they'll just bring in more.
Right. Well, that's exactly right. They've got that pipeline. They just roll them in left and right. I got to ask you about the Steelers and how they finished, because they end up 9-8. So what was your thought in watching how this team, which ends up 9-8 because of the miracle on opening day against Cincinnati, and ends up where they are? What'd you think?
Well, for me, anytime they don't get in the playoffs, it's not a successful season. That right. Doesn't mean they made bad use of some of the stuff they had going on. I think it's difficult to always transition from a franchise Hall of Fame quarterback to who knows what. And they were put in that position, Steve. But I think they probably minimized their downtime in terms of, finding the next guy. And I'm not suggesting that Kenny Pickett could be a franchise quarterback, but he certainly could be a functional one for them and somebody who can win a lot of games. And I think we saw that as the year went on. His stats aren't going to overblow you. But the fact that he got in there midseason and then played, and I thought if you really look inside the numbers on third down, he was really good in those critical downs, those weighty downs that you need to make plays on, or else the drive's over. So they got a jump start on their next quarterback, where a lot of teams could have taken Kenny Pickett. Nobody took any quarterback until the third round, and the Steelers were the only ones. And so maybe you know how teams look forever to find their next quarterback. You look at Indianapolis, what they've done ever since Andrew Luck left there. That was a tough thing for them to go through because no one thought that was coming. But then they've tried quarterback after quarterback after quarterback, and who knows where they're going to be next year with their quarterback situation. They're not the only one. So I think this year will be looked at as a building block to next year. And if next year turns into a playoff season, which I think it could, although they're in a tough division, I think you'll look back and say this was turns out to be a pretty good year for this young group on offense.
It looked as the season was going. I always felt like he had a pretty good sync with Pat Freiermuth, but it looked like as the season went, he was getting into better sync with George Pickens. Did you see the same thing?
Yeah, totally. I think both those guys are going to be very important to Kenny Pickett and the Steelers' offense. Pickens is the sure-handed guy who's made a lot of plays already, and I think he is trending upward to be the number one receiver here. I know Deontay Johnson signed a deal in this offseason, but he had a very strange year in that he never scored a touchdown despite 86 receptions and 147 targets. That's a lot not to get in the end zone. It's not all his fault either. I mean, they went through two quarterbacks, at times not sure how that was going to – it looked like a restrictive play calling on the quarterbacks early on, and it may have certainly hurt because they only had 12 passing touchdowns all year for a team. So, that's unacceptable. That's got to get better. But I think the experience that all these guys got this year should help them. It's hard to predict the NFL, as you know, because you never know what you're going to see. Who would have thought the Rams would go 5-12?
All right. Well, whoever thought Skylar Thompson would be playing a game to get him into the playoffs either at Miami.
And Brock Purdy would be your offensive rookie of the year, perhaps.
Yeah. Exactly. So when you look at the defense, Minka ended up being the team MVP. What did you think of his performance? And what does T.J. Watt need to do? I mean, to me, it just seems like he just needs to stay on the field because when he's on the field, it changes everything.
Oh, there's no question. I mean, it has an effect on everyone. I think we saw that when he wasn't on the field. They were 1-6 without him, 8-2 with him, and not that it's always his play that makes the difference, but what it does is it makes offenses really target him and try to minimize him, and in doing so, you open up opportunities for others. Alex Highsmith had 14.5 sacks, very quietly, and that's a tremendous. He led the league in forced fumbles, and he didn't even get a Pro Bowl selection. Well, he's going to be due to get a contract at the end of next year, or if they decide to do it sooner, it's going to cost him some money. So, Watt being healthy, generally all of those guys not missing large chunks of time is important to their defense. But who knows? You can never tell how that's going to be. Their offensive line this year, Steve, never missed a game. All 5 guys played every single start. That's unusual, but that does not mean that they shouldn't address it. They need to come up with better players and increase the depth in that position.
All right. That means, of course, it could be free agency they do it, or they could do it through the draft, which then brings up the draft. How amazed are you that the Steelers got a second-round pick from the Bears for Chase Claypool?
Well, stunned. I was stunned when it happened, just because I didn't. First of all, I thought Claypool would have a good year. This was a money year for him. This is going to be a contract year for him. It came off a bad year last year based on what we saw in his rookie season, and I thought this would be a jump back. I'm going to show you that I'm more of what you saw in my first year as opposed to what you saw in my second year. And it turned out to be none of it. And so they soured on him. They traded him. Who would have thought a second-round pick? Normally, draft capital, unless you're a really, really good player with some resume, you're not going to get a second-round pick. And they did, and essentially it's turned into a first-round pick because it's number 32 overall. That's like a late first-round pick. So they're going to have, 3 of the first 40, 4 of the first 80. If they cash in on those guys and they come in and play immediately, because more and more rookies are doing that, all of a sudden it could change the dynamics of your team. So it's very important, and it's the first draft for Omar Khan as the general manager, and Andy Weidel, who's the assistant GM after Kevin Colbert, left them with a pretty good draft class from this past season.
How did the fans react to watching the Steeler team play this year? How did they react in terms of voice and how, just talking to them in the street, and how did they react in terms of being in the seats?
Well, you do a talk show. You know how it goes. I do a talk show here. I know how it goes. People are never happy, no matter what. I'm sure with Penn State fans, you're going to get the people who always want more. Everyone always wants more. But it's a very competitive league, and it's very difficult to be on top. Now, while they didn't have a losing season, they certainly fell short of their goals again. And I think most of the criticism has been on the offensive coordinator, Matt Canada. And yesterday, I was of the belief they'd probably make a change with him. But yesterday I got the feeling after listening to Mike Tomlin that maybe they won't do that. He has a year left on a contract, so maybe they're going to let him play that contract out. Maybe not. I think sometimes these decisions make a week after the end of the season, and we'll see. But, I mean, most of the criticism went in his direction because, quite frankly, they didn't score enough points. They averaged 18 a game, and that includes, only one time going over 30. So in the NFL quick strike league, you need more big plays, more big offense. We did not see that from them. Now, could it be because they were going through a quarterback transition? I think that has a lot to do with it. Next year will be a better indication, but the question is, will he be here to go through that next year?
All right, exactly. It's a 17-game season now, and you and I both know, Bob, they want to go to 18 games. That's the NFL knows where the money is. But the attrition rate is, are you amazed? I doubt you're amazed by the attrition rate because of how physical the league is. But what about the product, and what does it look like after Thanksgiving compared to what it looks like in October?
Well, all you have to do is look at the Miami and Jets game that the Steelers needed the Jets to win and see Joe Flacco versus Skylar Thompson. That's all you need to do. And you look down at some of these other teams with these quarterbacks who are banged up, and Mike White is somebody they wanted in New York because Zach Wilson wasn't doing it. It is tough. There's a lot of injuries in place, and you end up, and that's why I think, Steve, these guys protect the quarterback so much. But also in doing that, you open up so much subjectivity on what is a roughing the passer call and what isn't. And you want to protect, sure, but you can't take away some of the abilities of these defensive players to make play. Cam Hayward got called for a roughing this week, and I couldn't believe it. All he did was tackle Deshaun Watson.
Exactly.
Because he, flung him around, it was viewed as roughing. But, I'm sorry. It's a delicate line to walk, but I understand what the league is trying to do. They want to keep their star players in the games so that they don't have Skylar Thompson versus Joe Flacco at the end of the year.
Well, they did that, but they still ended up with Skylar Thompson against Joe Flacco at the end of the year.
And that's your point.
and I got to ask you about Lamar Jackson for a moment, because this is 2 straight years where the last 5.5 games he's not a factor, and his contract's up, and he is his own agent. What do you think the Ravens should do? And what do you think will happen?
Well, he's his own agent, and I don't know. You save money, but you may cost yourself money too. I don't know. But then again, this is a league where all those numbers are out there. He knows where he would fit in. I'm sure he's looking at Deshaun Watson's contract and saying, I'm better than that. I won an MVP. I deserve at least that. So I don't think you need an agent to tell you that. But you do need an agent for some other things as well. Pardon the phone, it just went off here. So. But I think my guess would be that he's going to be franchised because they won't be able to make a deal that's suitable to the Ravens. I think they'd want to get a deal done, but the numbers will be different. And when they're different, it normally means there's an impasse. And they do have 2 years to franchise if they want to do it. So he won't like it, but he's going to make a whole bunch of money in 1 year if that's the case. But I think that's where we are with that. My guess would be he's going to be franchised.
Great point. Bob, always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks so much. Get that phone. Take care of it. And when you do
sorry
talk to him...
Sorry about the distractions, Steve. It's always great to talk to you.
No, Bob, tell him I said hi.
All right. Will do. They'll be honored.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate you.
All right. See ya.
The great Bob Pompeani. He's one of the best in the business. Yeah. You listen to that, that voice to go with all that, that knowledge. It's so great. Okay, we'll take a break. God, you can tell when I texted you.
Oh, yeah, right before, because I wasn't sure we were going to get him because with everything happening over there with him.
So this is what he says, haven't heard from him, man. Hadn't heard from Rube yet. Still working on Bob. So I texted you back.
Do you wake up with the goal of killing us?
You guys have to I hope the audience understands the rapport that we have. Because he knows I'm just kidding him. Right? This is where you back me up.
Yes. Yeah.
No, say it with more conviction.
I sent you back crying laughter emojis. I know you were just kidding.
Do you wake up every day with the goal of killing us?
Maybe that's what Cowboy fans will be saying next week.
Oh.
I'm sorry. Did I say that?
You know, there is a big part of me that does want the Eagles to play the Cowboys. Only from a show point of view.
No, you know what? I'm there with you for entertainment, and now I'm going to be there next week. I think it would be epic, but at the same time, that would make me the most nervous matchup.
In fact, I think that guy in the 1980 NFC Championship game, he's like, Dallas here at the vet is one of your relatives. I think if you go back with your parents, and you say, "Is that like aunt, uncle, cousin?" I'm telling you.
All of them are Giants fans.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I come from a fan of Giant fans, remember. Everybody, all my family's based in Jersey City, North Jersey. Everybody's New York Giants. In fact, I'm still reminded to this day that my maternal grandfather was still rolling in his grave to this day because I'm an Eagle fan.
Yeah, but there were other reasons, too. No, I'm just going to...
Get the lingerie on the deck. Call the janitor.
I don't know his grandfather, everybody. Okay, so please. I'm just kidding. But your father's an Eagles fan, right?
He is, but because of me. See, my dad was not into sports whatsoever. Okay. He didn't give one iota about sports growing up until I showed up. And then when I started getting into sports in second grade, which the Eagles were the first love through my friends at school, then he started getting into it, and now he loves football.
Yeah. My dad loved Penn State football. He loved the Giants, and he loved the Yankees. Okay. Because remember, when my dad was younger, there was no AFL. Okay. So the Giants were the NFL team. There's no AFL. Right. My mom loved the Giants. But again, same story. When she's growing up, the Boston Patriots don't exist. All right? And she loved the Red Sox. Well, then it turned out my brother loved the Yankees, Giants. I was a Giants, Red Sox fan. But see, then that's where I branched off because, my father liked hockey, but it didn't, but he liked hockey when the Whalers came into existence. And he went to a couple of games, and he really enjoyed it. The only reason he liked basketball was because I announced it. In all seriousness. The only reason he liked basketball was if I was announcing the game, he was interested. If it wasn't, he had no interest in basketball.
Yeah, that's basically where my dad stands. He's not a big basketball guy.
Right. And in hockey, if it wasn't going to a Whalers game, he had no interest in hockey. Okay?
Yep. That's the same way. He likes going to hockey, but he won't watch on TV.
Right. Now, meanwhile, I grew up like, really into hockey, love Bobby Orr, love hockey. There are times where I would rather watch college basketball. Let's take college basketball out of it, because obviously I'll watch college basketball all the time. And part of it's my job, but part of it is I just enjoy college basketball. But I'd rather watch an NHL game than an NBA game. Just the way it is. Now, if it's an NHL game and, say, the Celtics are on, okay, then I'll watch the Celtics. But it reflects in the ratings. Like I said, the top 100 shows of last year, 94 were sports, 82 were the NFL, none were the NBA, and none were Major League Baseball. And believe me, you know how much I love baseball. Love it. So you're going to go to the game with your father. He has brought I guess I was told he went over to CVS today and bought 2 bottles of Motrin. I don't know what that's about. But if it's the Cowboys.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be pretty epic.
If it is the Cowboys, And the Eagles are the better team. So this is not a case of, all right, the Eagles are the better team. But that's going to be some week if the Cowboys beat the Bucs and the Vikings beat the Giants. And who else has to, let's see, in Seattle?
Yeah, Seattle's playing San
Francisco.
Yeah.
So if it turns out that way, where the Vikings, 49ers, and Cowboys win.
Yeah. It'll be a juggernaut of a weekend for the NFC.
It'll be Dallas and Philadelphia. All right. You will be sitting there on every play, almost in a trance. You're getting nervous now. Oh, the other item he bought? Paper bag for you to blow into.
Yeah, this will be our first game since 2019, actually.
Okay, what was the last game you went to?
It was the J.J. Arcega-Whiteside drop game against Detroit.
Do the Eagles know your bad luck? All right, as we come back with more in a moment, you're on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
There's something to be said about a sale with a handshake, a service technician who really knows what he's doing. They can explain it in English what the problem is. There's nothing better than having that friend you could trust in the area. That's Sunbury Motors, where you get selection, knowledgeable salespeople, and prices that fit your budget, and more important, that friend you can trust. Welcome to Sunbury Motors, Kia, Ford, and Hyundai. You could shop other dealers and compare prices, but at Sunbury Motors, you get their lowest price promise. They research the current used vehicle market and guarantee their used car prices are the lowest. If you find a lower price, Sunbury Motors will beat it. 3 dealers all in one. See their full new and pre-owned inventory at sunburymotors.com. Pick out a vehicle you like and schedule your test drive online. Follow them on Facebook. Sunbury Motors Ford and Hyundai, North 4th Street, Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf.
Yeah, maybe they could play Seattle.
That would be the best case scenario in my book, but we'll see. But actually, my dad and I have an overall 20-5 record, by the way. We're just on our first losing streak ever.
So you lost 5 times.
Correct. But we've won 20. And
so
a lot of them have been blowouts.
Times? So you lost 5 times.
Correct.
Taking your calls at 800-795-9565. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
All right, Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia. Routes 11 and 15, Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Kia, Hyundai, the best in new inventory, all with great warranties. Those warranties mean so much. Fabulous pre-owned inventory, and again, because you have Sunbury Motors going over each one with a fine-tooth comb, it's the Sunbury Motors guarantee, which means so much. And a fabulous service department with terrific technicians that back it all up at Sunbury Motors. 4th Street in Sunbury, Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15, Hummel's Wharf, online at sunburymotors.com. Let's see. The latest Intermat rankings are out. Penn State is number 1 as the dual meet team. Michigan is 4. They're in the Jordan Center. I think that's a Jordan Center dual meet. I believe it is. And then Michigan State, which is 29. Gary Steen still not ranked at 125. We all know Gary's had his struggles this year. Roman Bravo Young 1 at 133. Bo Bartlett's number 4 at 141. Shane Van Ness is 15. at 149. Levi Haynes got in there at 16 at 157. Los Facundo is 16 at 165. Carter Starachi, 1 at 174. Aaron Brooks, number 1 at 184. Max Dean is number 4 at 197. And Greg Kirkfleet is 1 at 285. Okay? So, there you go. That is the story. And Michigan's in the Jordan Center next on Friday the 20th. And then Michigan State will be in Rec Hall on the 22nd. So Friday night the 20th, a week from Friday, Michigan in the Jordan Center. That should be a wild and raucous crowd that night. That's the first of two in the BJC, the other one, of course, being Iowa. Curtis Jacobs announcing today, officially putting out that he's coming back for the 2023 season to Penn State. So that's now Hunter Nourzad, Adisa Isaac, Curtis Jacobs, Devon Ellies, all saying that they will be back. Now, if you want to go to the NFL draft, you have until Monday to make that announcement. Transfer portal closes, I believe it's Wednesday the 18th, so a week from tomorrow. And then does not open up again until the first week of May. Penn State finishing 7th in both polls. It's amazing with Jacobs. When they moved him in the box, the traffic pattern is different. Now he's going to, when they go with their 3-down line package, the dollar package, and so forth. He and Carter are out there together, and so they're both inside together. But that's a different role. It just seemed like Jacobs' season really took off when he moved back to the field linebacker spot. And I want to say it was he started doing it in the Michigan game. He started doing it there. He didn't start there, but he started doing it there and then went out there for the Minnesota game, and he had, a 14-tackle night? Felt like he was all over the field. He was one of the 5 best players on the field that night. And I thought that he played terrific football against Michigan State. He played really well against, Maryland. I thought he played really well in the Rose Bowl. Jacobs is a good player. He is a really good player. And getting him back is one of the many pluses. And I talked about yesterday about Adisa Isaac. Now, when he plays next year, he will be more than 2 years removed from the Achilles. And and that's normally when you do see somebody with that type of injury really take off, is usually a couple of years out from it. Every injury has its own timetable as to when you're really back. That's one of them that usually takes 1.5 to 2 years. That's why I give him so much credit. I thought the last 5 games of the season, 6 games of the season, he played terrific. Then there's the Carlos Correa story.
Get the lingerie on the deck. Call the janitor.
Who was thought to be the last option really going into this thing? It was the Minnesota Twins, the team he played with last year. And the Twins made him an offer. And the Twins made him a big offer. So it's not like they didn't sit there and try to re-sign him. But he first made a 13-year, $350 million deal with the Giants. And they're going through the physical, looking at the ankle. They don't like it. There's a problem. They cancel the press conference. Then he reaches an agreement with the Mets. 12 years, $315. Okay. It's all good. We've reached an agreement. We had a letter of agreement. We gave them time to execute it. They advised us they still had questions. They still wanted to talk to other people, other doctors, yada, yada, yada. Guess what? And then Mets owner Steve Cohen opted to talk about the agreement before the physical. We needed one more thing, and this is it. He said, this was important. This puts us over the top. This is a good team. I hope it's a good team. Then all of a sudden, the Mets had a concern with Correa's physical. Uh-oh. So the Mets then walked away from Correa's physical, worried about long-term well-being of the ankle. Okay. So now he's agreed with the Twins, and it's a 6-year deal worth $200 million. Now, if there is any team in Major League Baseball that has an excellent handle on Carlos Correa's ankle, it is obviously the Minnesota Twins, because they checked him every day. He's only 28. And, you know, there are a lot of people thought he was the number 3 free agent behind Aaron Judge and Jacob deGrom. Okay. So he's back with Minnesota. So there you go. And I will say this, that, you know, people thought that the Twins were brought back in with the idea, like, hey, look, you know, hey, we'll show the Mets. We got another offer going on here. Okay, great. That's not what happened. They were serious about bringing him back to Minnesota. And they were serious negotiations. Let's see. Guy I thought was a really good kicker, Nathaniel Vakos for Ohio University. Kicked against Penn State. Like, yeah, you watch him. This guy's pretty good. He's going to transfer to Wisconsin. Wisconsin's doing a lot of transfers. That usually happens when a new coaching staff comes in. And that's what's happening with them. They're getting a lot of transfers. Oh, speaking of shortstops, or shortstop, maybe second baseman, Trevor Story had elbow surgery. He's going to miss a significant portion of the 2023 season. No offense, but like, you couldn't have done this in October? If it's bothering you that much, you couldn't have done it in October? So I love these surgeries that happen in January. What, this just happened? Like, suddenly his elbow and these are like, January? What the heck? He did not have a full reconstruction of Tommy John, so he might be able to play some this year. All the Yankees are completely healthy. And what the Phillies have done. You know what the Phillies have quietly done? They've been bolstering their bullpen. Have you noticed that?
Yes, they have. That was a nice trade they made with the Tigers the other day.
Yeah, I mean, and the key to any bullpen, in this day and age to me is how many guys can give you career years or maybe their second best year ever. That's about what it comes down to with bullpens. Can they give you either their best year or maybe their second best year ever? And can you get at least a couple of guys to do that? And that is what, to me, that is what it comes down to. Every team year after year. You look at Houston. Some of those guys had career years this year in their bullpen. Made a big difference. Phillies got really good years out of the bullpen. Got them to the World Series. Speaking of money, Roquan Smith, dealt by the Bears to the Ravens, is going to get a 5-year, $100 million deal to make him the highest paid linebacker in the history of the NFL. $45 million of it is fully guaranteed. $60 million, there's an additional $20 million in other guarantees. Oh, and by the way, he keeps all of it. No agent. He negotiated the deal himself. Wonder if he'd be willing to help out Lamar Jackson on his deal. But you know what? Bob's right. They may just franchise him. You know that? They may just franchise him. You're allowed to do that. And the reason, and I've said this over and over again, I always love when people blame NFL teams on the franchise thing. No offense, but the Players Association agreed to it. Why maybe once, but you're allowed to franchise somebody twice, and the Players Association agreed to this. There are always I always mention there are a lot of myths in sports. One is, in college basketball, college basketball's one and done rule. No, that's an NBA rule. College basketball just has to live through it. But that is an NBA rule. It's not a college basketball rule. It's like just like the NFL has a rule of 3 years and then you can go. Well, the NBA, you're allowed to be 19 and one and done. That's one of the great myths. College basketball, that's stupid. College basketball, one and done rule. No, it's an NBA rule. Hey, maybe Roquan Smith can negotiate your next deal.
Sure, why not?
I mean, this one turned out pretty well.
Yeah, I'll take it.
And they're grading out the new coaches in the NFL, their teams. CBS did this. I could care less about this stuff, but let's just for entertainment purposes. Brian Daboll, A-. Kevin O'Connell of the Vikings got B+ from CBS. Mike McDaniel got C+. Matt Eberflus of the Bears got a D+. Doug Peterson, A-. Dennis Allen of the Saints, C-. Ty Bowles, Tampa Bay, D+. Were the Bucs under 500? I thought they were over 5. I thought they ended up 9-8.
Yeah, 9-8.
Yeah, they've got here as 8 and 9. Josh McDaniels, D+. Interim. Steve Wilkes of the Panthers got an A-. Jerry Rosberg of the Broncos got a B+. And Jeff Saturday got a D+. It's interesting how Black Monday came up. Jeff Saturday was not fired yet.
That's right.
Oh, I can hear him in the background. What is he doing now?
I think we're getting things organized for the rest of the week. You know, we got Rally in the Valley tomorrow for Boys Hoops. Shikellamy at Selinsgrove.
Yeah, but you do understand. I've been in the building. I know we have offices. Like standing outside, bellowing outside the studio is not, you know.
Oh, I was wrong, by the way. Tampa was 8-9.
So they lose the last game?
Yeah, the Falcons beat him 30-17, but they pulled Tom Brady like halfway through the game.
Oh, okay. All right.
So, yeah, they were 8-9. But either way, I would have given the same thing to Todd Bowles. I honestly don't think he's a good head coach. I think he's one of those coaches that he's a good coordinator, but he's not a good head coach.
Okay. All right. We'll come back, wrap it up in a moment. Brought to you by Sunbury Motors on News Radio 1070 WKO.
We talked a lot this week about, we should be confident. Again, did we feel like we played a great game today? No, not by any means. But this team should be confident, right? And that doesn't mean cocky. It means confident.
I'm going to guess that was Stetson Bennett.
Oh no, that was Nick Sirianni. Sorry, from the post game on Sunday.
Yeah. Sounded scared to death to me. Just kidding. They should be confident. They've been the best team all year. It's interesting. What was one of the toughest games they had? Detroit, opening game.
It was.
That was the one Merrill told us he was worried about.
Exactly right. And I was right there with him.
It's a tough, hard-nosed team. As I closed yesterday's show, I said, what a group of pros. They find out before the game they're out, and they played their guts out. And I was listening to the game all the way back from Philly. Wow. So big day today with Curtis Jacobs adding his name to Adisa Isaac and others about returning. Devon Ellies for Penn State. Penn State finished 7th in both polls. Junior Day is coming up this weekend. Interesting times. I would get into everybody's rankings for 23, but I don't care yet.